I think you're trying to defend the indefensible. There's no way that this budget or the actions you have taken thus far as Secretary are going to make this country healthier. And you keep talking about waste at the agency, but I mentioned in my opening there are 340 top scientists who signed a letter to the NIH director detailing unprecedented waste, abuse, and illegality at NIH under the Trump administration. And you know, the thing that really disturbs me the most is this anti-science agenda. That I think it's clear to me that the vast majority of scientists and medical professionals, you know, think your views on vaccines are dangerous, are not supported by scientific evidence. I'd like to ask the chairman, I'd like to ask unanimous consent to enter into the record a letter from 63 medical and public health groups and a letter from the American Academy of Family Physicians, American Academy of Pediatrics, American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, and the American College of Physicians, all raising grave concerns, Mr. Chairman, about the Secretary's actions to undermine vaccines.
Can you tell me the date of that letter, Congressman?
No, I'm not asking a question. I have something to ask.
Okay, because I think that letter was sent
I'm just asking
about a week after I got in
Mr.
here.
Chairman, I haven't gotten my questions. I'm just asking unanimous consent to enter these into the record.
Without objection.
Thank you. Mr. Secretary, the science is not on your side. I just really think that people are going to die as a result of your actions and congressional Republicans' actions. But you keep mentioning transparency during your testimony. You said it over and over again. But you promote, I consider, unfounded and unscientific therapies and conspiracy theories without data or evidence. And all of this has been done behind closed doors without any public engagement, despite your pledge to lead with, I think you called it, radical transparency. So let me ask you about, yes or no, though, about this radical transparency that you say you espouse. Do you believe that keeping Congress informed of your decisions and promptly answering inquiries from members of Congress fits within your promise for radical transparency? Just yes or yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Now, since you became Secretary, I have sent you 10 letters on a variety of topics, including the devastating workforce and program cuts at HHS. You've answered none, and your staff have given no indication that you intend to answer, despite being asked repeatedly. And this, in my opinion, is the opposite of radical transparency. I call it radical obstruction of congressional oversight. So again, yes or no, do you commit to providing a written, substantive response to all questions posed in each of these letters no later than August 1st? And if not, give me a date.
We've gotten an unprecedented number of letters from Congress, literally thousands upon thousands.
Okay, but I'm only asking for a date. Can you
and
answer
we are
by
answering
August
them
1st?
as fast as we can, and all those letters will be answered.
I haven't gotten a single answer to any of them, Mr. Secretary.
Well, there, like I said, we have gotten thousands
I'm just
thousands
asking
of
you,
letters from Congress.
You said that you want to be transparent. You've said that Congress in responding to us is important. So can you give me a date? If not, I'm going to assume I'm never going to hear back. I said August 1st. August 15th? Tell me.
I'm not going to tell you a date.
Well, then I don't think I'm ever going to get a response, and I think your suggestion that somehow you're being transparent is simply not true. Now, one last question. You have made a number of major decisions about vaccines, and again, there's been no public comment process or public accountability on that either. What are you afraid of? I mean, with regard to vaccines, are you just afraid of receiving public comments on proposals? Or you just think these are fringe views that are contrary to the views of most scientists, and that the public comments will reflect this? You say you want transparency, but there's been no public process for any of this.
We have a public process for regulating vaccines. It's called the AZIP committee, and it's a public meeting. There will be public comment at that meeting.
You fired the AZIP.
I fired people who had conflicts with the pharmaceutical industry.
Oh, I mean, that's...
That industry, that... Okay. Committee has been a template for medical malpractice for 30 years.
I can't. The bottom line is here: we have no transparency. We have no response. You feel no responsibility to Congress whatsoever, and you just continue this ideology that's anti-science, anti-vaccine. That's all I see. I see nothing else, and I don't think I'm ever going to get a response. And so I'm going to have to ask.
Will the gentleman yield?
My time is
well,
up.
Mr. Chairman,
This is the Committee of
Chairman,
Jurisdiction.
to
The
answer
gentleman
that
has
question.
yielded. The chair now recognizes the vice chair of the committee, of the subcommittee, for 5 minutes of questioning. Dr. Dunn.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Secretary Kennedy, for being with us today. I want to begin by commending you for the work your department and the administration has done to make improvements in the health of the American people and to be responsible stewards of our tax dollars. Time and time again, we heard from the prior administration mismanagement across the department, but I'm particularly concerned about the damage inflicted to public trust in our health institutions. Unsurprisingly, when faced with sweeping mandates, the American public responded with skepticism and mistrust. I know you've already taken steps to restore public trust in our health institutions. Do you see those as being successful in the near future, or over what timeline?
We're going to restore public trust, Congressman, Vice Chairman, by restoring truth. We're going to tell the truth to the American people, and we're going to use evidence-based science, gold standard science. As I said, we're going to use replication. If I can take a minute just to respond to something that Congressman Pallone said, and I'll address you, Congressman Pallone. 15 years ago, you and I met. You were at that time a champion for people who had suffered injuries from vaccines. You were very adamant about it. You were the leading member of Congress on that issue. Since then, you've accepted $2 million from pharmaceutical companies in contribution, more than any other member of this committee. And your enthusiasm for supporting the old ACIP committee, which was completely rife and pervasive with pharmaceutical conflicts, seems to be an outcome of those contributions.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you.
point of order. Point of order.
The chair recognizes
Point of order. The
Dr.
gentleman is impugning the reputation of a member of Congress.
Stop the clock.
Can you stop the clock for a second? Can you state the point of order?
Yeah. He was impugning Mr. Pallone's
Mr.
reputation.
Chairman, I didn't hear it. Did the
Oh,
gentleman?
you weren't paying attention. That's why.
Well, you know, it's hard to pay attention here when we're not getting any responses.
Okay,
My
okay.
understanding now is that the secretary said something about me taking money from pharmaceuticals. Is that what he said?
The secretary implied that Mr. Pallone would not fight for vaccine victims because he took money from the pharmaceutical industry.
You know,
He
again,
needs to take back those words.
you know,
Mr.
he
Okay,
needs to-
okay,
I
here
would
we go,
ask that
here
the
we go,
words
here
be
we go.
taken down.
This, Mr. Secretary, this is a valid point of order, I'm told. So I'd ask you if you would, please take back those words.
They're retracted.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to continue on with the decorum that I mentioned earlier in this hearing. And what we're going to do is to go to Dr. Dunn to finish up his time of questioning. Dr. Dunn is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So the department's fiscal year 26 proposed budget includes $750 million for strategic national stockpile as the Republican lead on the Pandemic and All Hazards Preparedness Act, PAPA, we call it. I believe that a strong national stockpile is critical to ensure we're prepared to respond to emergencies. Do you see this stockpile as being adequate, or $750 million budget being adequate for that, sir?
Well, I'm very, very gratified about congressional support for reappropriating PAPA, which is absolutely critical for our pandemic response. The stockpile, I think, has now $17 billion worth of inventory. I have to check those numbers, but I'm pretty sure that that's it. And we could be doing better. The stockpile did not distinguish itself during COVID. It didn't have many of the things that we needed during COVID, and we're doing a review of that right
Please
now
let
to
us
make
help you
sure
with
that the
that.
stockpile is adequately stocked.
Keep us informed, and we'll help you with that. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. You've long been an advocate of addressing mitochondrial health, kind of an interesting, edgy area that's illuminated earlier by the questions from Chairman Carter. The Haley VA Medical Center in Tampa has validated the compassionate use data for amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, Parkinson's disease, and has generated new positive data using mitochondrial transplantation for Alzheimer's. They've also entered into formal agreement with Walter Reed to use this experiment with this treatment for traumatic brain injuries. And now NASA is entering into a similar agreement to study mitochondrial health issues associated with space travel. Secretary Kennedy, do you intend to continue these efforts?
To study mitochondrial?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be, mitochondrial dysfunction is the heart and soul of the chronic disease epidemic. And, you know, we now know that Alzheimer's disease, which was once thought to be, have a number of hypotheses about its etiology. But Alzheimer's disease is now characterized in the medical literature as type 3 diabetes, because it's recognized that mitochondrial dysfunction is not just causing disease in children, but it's also causing a disease in adults. And the cause of it is clearly our food. That's one of the principal causes, and we are absolutely laser focused.
I'm afraid our time has expired, but
Gentleman's
thank you
time
very
has
much for your
expired.
answers.
The chair now recognizes the gentleman from California, Dr. Ruiz, for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Earlier, Secretary Kennedy, you said you wanted to instill trust using truth, evidence-based, gold standard science. But Mr. Kennedy, in late May, the so-called, quote, Presidential Commission to Make America Healthy Again released what HHS described as a, quote, groundbreaking assessment that purported to identify the key drivers behind childhood chronic disease. Improving the health of America's children is a goal I share, and I recognize this is a passion of yours, Mr. Secretary. That is why I was struck to learn that the report was riddled with mistakes, misconstruing and intentionally or not misstating key references, data, and evidence that either do not exist or are not accurately reflected in the report. When journalists reached out to many of the authors of the studies included in the MAHA assessment, numerous researchers and academics stated that they never wrote the papers as cited, or the papers cited didn't even exist altogether. Mr. Chairman, I want to submit these 3 news reports on these miscited documents from notice from May 29th and May 30th.
Without objection.
Ms. Secretary Kennedy, you're listed as the chair of the commission. Did you read the report and fact-check its sources prior to publication?
All of the factual
Did you read
sources-
the reports, and did you yourself fact-check them, sir?
I did not fact check.
You did not fact-check. So why then, as has
All of
been
the
widely
foundational
reported, excuse me,
assertions
sir, I'm
that-
speaking. Why then did the report include a citation to sources that don't even exist? How does that happen under your leadership, sir?
All of the foundational assertions in that report are accurate.
They did not
Some of them-
exist. How can they be
some-
accurate if they did not
That
exist, sir?
Some of the citations
You know, in
were-
fact, my understanding
Some of the
is that
citations
even
were
once
messed
the
up for one
report,
day,
even once the
for one-
report was updated, more authors and researchers came forward stating that their research was misconstrued. This is quite unbelievable, sir. In fact, I was a pre-med at UCLA. They have a great pre-med program. If somebody turned this in as an undergrad to their professor at UCLA, they would have received an F, sir, an F for the misinterpretation, the falsehoods, the denials, and also citing references that don't even exist. That's lying and dishonest, sir. My concern here
The citations
my
were
concern
corrected in
here
one
is
day.
that you and this administration are undertaking vast changes to our federal public health system and using purported facts and gold standard evidence that you claim to have as justifications for your decisions, actions, and frankly, your decimation of our nation's public health infrastructure. Yet, what you are relying upon isn't real. It isn't data-driven, and it isn't based in fact, science, or reality. Sir, it's wrong. As a secretary of one of the most consequential departments within our federal government, mischaracterizing data is not just some typos in a report that gets put on a shelf. Instead, your words and your words of your department carry significant weight. Do you agree?
The
Does it carry
citations in that
significant
report
weight?
were wrong.
The
That was a
question-
mistake. They
the
were
questions-
corrected within
and there-
24 hours.
Yeah, but there were wrong still even after that, and they're wrong still today.
There were no
So do you
erroneous
believe that
factual
your
assertions,
words
Congressman.
carry significant weight?
There were no
Do
erroneous
you
factual
believe your words
assertions.
carry significant weight?
There were no
Does
erroneous
the
factual
do you
assertions.
believe that the Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services plays an important role in upholding scientific integrity?
Yes.
Okay, so then, in fact, what is most striking about this is that you've also threatened to bar governmental scientists and researchers from publishing in top medical journals. You've barred them from publishing in top reputable medical journals and instead proposed, quote, creating our own journals in-house. The idea that we would
want
limit
me to
the
answer that
ability for
question,
federal
Congressman?
researchers to publish in the most preeminent medical journals and instead have HHS just publish more reports like their MAHA failed assessment, lacking the scientific rigor, accuracy, or peer-reviewed criteria that are required by leading journals, should worry us all for the future of medicine and innovation. Sir, you mentioned that building trust was a priority number 7. You have failed already in building that trust. How can we trust you when in your report, under your leadership, when you're the chair of this report, has false information and makes up research that didn't even exist? So, Chairman,
You left me
I
no time to
yield
answer
back
your question.
the remainder of my time.
Gentleman yields. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Griffith, for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I would remind everybody that Galileo got an F during his day and age, and that sometimes people who are trying to do cutting-edge work don't get the response they expect from this leading scientist.